Hello, and welcome to another presentation by Aliant on cross-border M&A transactions. Today with me, I have Meir Fuchs from our Israel office. Meir is a corporate and M&A attorney with over 30 years of experience. He is licensed to practice law not only in Israel, but also in New York State, where he did practice law for some period of time, also in the corporate and M&A arena. And because of Meir's background in U.S. law and his perfect English, he represents a lot of U.S. and other Western clients who are doing business with Israeli companies who are doing business in Israel and investing in Israel. So Meir, thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to have you.
Hi, Jacob. A pleasure to be with you.
Cool. To dive right into it, what would you say are some of the more interesting, remarkable business cultures in Israel that foreign investors should watch out for?
Well, I can say that a foreign investor coming into Israel is typically able to dress very casually here and wear polo shirts, and especially in the summer because it's hot here quite, and even in winter not so cold. And another cultural aspect that one can speak about is that one should never ask someone who was in the intelligence services what he did in the army, because he will either say, I can't say anything to you, or he will say to you, I can tell you, but then I have to silence you. So I think it's best not to ask.
Interesting. Okay. I guess that is a bit unique to Israel. What would you say are some of the more interesting or peculiar legal issues in Israel concerning M&A transactions?
One of the most important things, I think, for a foreign investor to look at, especially with high-tech companies, is whether the company has received any government grants or loans, because many of the high-tech companies receive such grants or loans from the Israel Innovation Authority. And then there are strings attached so that if one would desire to take the IP abroad, then certain penalties are assessable or extra royalties payments. And then it's also important in order to obtain permission from the Israel Innovation Authority in order to acquire a stake in a company like that.
Okay, that makes sense. Are there any clauses that you would see in the sale and purchase agreements in Israel that would be, very abnormal, let's say, or different from other countries?
Well, I think we have the typical clauses which have to do with rights of shareholders, especially if they are in a minority. Then we would have not only a share purchase agreement by the investor, but we would have a shareholders' rights agreement as well. I'm not sure if that is something that is done in Europe also, but then there would be all kinds of veto rights given to the minority shareholders in as far as the management and governing of the company, such as amendments to the bylaws, increase in share capital, change of share capital, etc. So I think those kinds of clauses are very, very common in Israel and are very important, of course, to keep rights of a minority and prevent any kind of majority compulsion of the minority shareholders.
Interesting. So very strong protection for minority shareholders.
Yes, absolutely. Also, the requirements of good faith under Israeli law are very high level, because it's something that has been enunciated by the Supreme Court over and over again, that not only in contractual negotiations, but also in contractual enforcement of rights, one must always keep to a good faith level of conduct. So it's possible even to sue on the basis of lack of good faith in contractual negotiations if someone negotiates in parallel with two parties and doesn't tell them that he's negotiating in parallel, and that could lead to a claim.
Oh, that's very interesting. Okay. What are some considerations that a foreign acquirer should take into account if they're going after a target in Israel?
Well, there are no restrictions on any foreign control by foreigners in Israel. There are no restrictions on foreigners having directors' posts in an Israeli company. And those things can easily be implemented by a foreign company. There are many, many Israeli companies, of course, which are held either in a minority stake or a majority stake by foreign venture capitals and all kinds of private equity companies. So those things are quite common in Israel, and one should not worry about any kind of foreign control other than in any kind of defense-related or infrastructure types of companies.
Interesting. Got it. Okay. Thank you. Well, are there any non-legal hints you have for foreigners doing business in Israel?
I think that one should come in with a view to maintain very good personal relations. And I think it's important to be on a first-name basis right off the bat. Israelis are used to non-formal type of interactions. And one should take the time because Israelis are very happy to conduct negotiations into the wee hours of the morning to tire out the opponent or the other party, the rival party, so that you have to have some good Turkish coffee and some good espressos in order to keep going until negotiations are actually done.
Those are good words of wisdom. Meir, thank you so much for joining us today. Your experience, I think, speaks for itself. And certainly for me and my clients, you are the go-to corporate lawyer in Israel. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you, Meir.
Thank you, Jacob. Bye-bye.